Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Sacred Space podcast. My name is Gina Stockton, and I am so happy that you have joined me today. I have a very special guest today, my friend Mary Felch. Mary is a marriage and family therapist, loves Jesus, and is one of my favorite people. Mary has an incredible story. She has walked through a lot in her life and is just a living, breathing miracle and demonstration of God's redemption. And in addition to that, I just felt like with 2020 and 2021 and all the things that we've walked through in the last year, all of the fear and chaos really that has surrounded us, there's a lot of people experiencing anxiety and depression and fear that never have really wrestled with that before. And people who have wrestled with that are finding themselves in darker places than they'd ever experienced before. So I asked Mary to come and share her wisdom, her experience, the things she's seeing, and how her faith merges with her understanding and her education about emotional, mental health and how that lines up with our spiritual health. So sit back, relax, and enjoy your time in the sacred space. Mary Felch, hi.
Hi, Gina.
Friend, you are one of my favorite people. Mary and her husband Keith have been an incredible gift in our lives, in our family's life. We have a lot of history, but I wanted you here for a number of reasons, not the least of which is I just think you're awesome. But you have an incredible story, and the Lord's been, I've just been very passionate about testimony lately. I think with some of the earlier podcasts I recorded for this season, talking to some people and realizing that we just don't hear people's stories as much as we used to. Back when I was a kid in the early days in Calvary, every Sunday somebody got up and shared their testimony and how they met Jesus. They stood up and shared their story of how they encountered him and how their life changed. And we just don't hear that as much. So you have a pretty profound story and testimony, and you have several, actually. We just talked before we started recording. So would love for you to share that. But in addition, you're a marriage and family therapist. You also do art therapy.
Yes.
You also have the best voice in the world. Your voice is like a hug. So everybody, I have so many people say that my voice is soothing. I have nothing on my friend Mary, and you'll get to that soon. But yeah, we're in the beginning of 2021, which is coming at the end of 2020. It's been a brutal year in terms of world circumstances, cultural situations. There's just a lot going, a lot of insecurity and fear, a lot of division and anger and offense in the world. There's a lot happening. Yeah. People who do not ever struggle with anxiety or depression or fear are finding themselves facing those things for the first time. And those that have struggled before are having to
very hard time
process on a whole different level. And so I would love to talk to you about that as well. Like, what are you seeing? How have things shifted with people that you see that are coming to you? And then also, you can't always do it when you're in the office with a client, but you are a believer. You do know Jesus. And how does what you know about emotional and mental health tie in with spiritual health and how we can stand, how we can be in like Ephesians, stand, and after you've done everything you can to stand.
That's right.
And that's in spiritual warfare, but I think that spiritual warfare absolutely ties into our emotional and our mental health and spiritual health. So wherever you want to start, maybe we'll start with your story, because that kind of brings you to how you came to be where you are, and you shared with me you're writing your story.
Yes.
Which is
working
awesome.
on that.
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning.
A very good place to start. So I had a really hard childhood, and still working through some things.
Yeah.
But I was raised kid number 5 out of 10 children in a large Catholic family. that went to Mass every Sunday, and I went to Catholic school growing up, and nothing against Catholic believers.
Yeah.
But our family wasn't necessarily that. We had a lot of chaos at home, and my father was a very violent man.
Yeah.
And so I lived in fear my whole life. I don't remember not being in fear.
Wow.
And because of that, I witnessed domestic violence. He would hit my mom, and, he was physically abusive to myself and all my siblings.
Yeah.
And then also, he was sexually abusive. And this was the big secret in the family. And we'd have to, get ready and go to church and get ready and go to school and put a smile on your face. But when you're home, you just never knew what was going to happen next.
Wow.
And so that kind of fear has gripped me most of my life.
Yeah, I don't even know how to comprehend that kind of safety violation. Your home should be the place that you're safe, but when your home is not safe, then what do you have? And the kind of fear that must instill is pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it makes it hard to breathe. And so, and we, as a therapist, I learned that about trauma survivors, that their breathing is very much tied in with their trauma, as well as people who suffer from anxiety. And so we work on breathing and letting yourself feel your body breathe. And just to do that is an actual exercise for a lot of people.
Yeah.
To take a deep breath in and out. And it's very refreshing to realize I can do that purposefully, which didn't come to me in a natural way.
Yeah.
So a lot of my healing has had to be with great intention and a lot of hard work. Yeah. And I wish that it was magic wand healing by God, but mine was a long, hard journey. And but he met me there.
Yeah. And I also, I'm so glad that you said that, because I think for a long time, I think it's getting better now, but I think for a long time in the church, there really wasn't context, grid, or even permission for a process of healing. Yeah. And so there was a lot of, once you come to Jesus, read your Bible and pray and do these things and you should be fine. And if you're still struggling, get over yourself, which really compounds the fear and shame, right? Because now all that self-hatred and shame that you've been living with, now just the enemy just capitalizes on that, right?
Oh, yeah. And you feel so isolated. Yeah. You're the only one in the world who feels the way you do or thinks the way you do. It's so full of shame to admit it. I remember when I used to go to a church when I was super depressed. I was in my healing process, but I was in the depression stage. And the pastor, up on the pulpit would talk really bad about psychology. Yeah. And then he would talk terribly about people who needed antidepressants. Yeah. And at that point, I had started seeing a therapist and I was put on antidepressants. And so it was really hard to just go, well, I guess my pastor doesn't understand. Eventually, we went to a church that had a psychologist on staff. Thank God. And, people have grown beyond that earlier way of thinking. But it was very damaging to be suicidal in church on Sundays and hear my pastor saying the things that are helping me were not good. Yeah. But I'm glad I found someplace else to go at that time, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. You grew up in that home where fear was, your constant. That was your baseline. Yeah. When did you meet Jesus, or at least recognize that Jesus wasn't just putting on a nice dress and putting on a smile and going through the motions on a Sunday with your family?
Well, in 10th grade, we moved to a new county, and I had to go to a new school, and I didn't know anyone. And the first group of people that welcomes you are the lovely people who do drugs. Yeah. And so I started hanging out with them, and they were nice, but it scared me. And I watched my sister go hang out with another group of people, and I thought, maybe I'll check out her group. And she was nice enough to let me. And it ended up being this group of people in high school that sat around a tree at lunch and played guitar and sang and opened their Bible and read it. And they were nice to each other. And it blew me away.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know how people in high school are in categories. You have the nerds and the cools and the whatever. And like, I would see people of different groups talking to each other and hugging each other. Yeah. And I was like, you guys are breaking the rules. It was just like amazing. And that is where I first saw is by your love, they will know you are my disciples indeed. Yeah. And that's what I saw, and I was attracted to it.
Yeah.
And so I kept coming, and then one morning I prayed with someone and accepted Jesus.
Praise the Lord. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And let me also, just side note, say, church, this is what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
How amazing would it be if we could get back to different groups from different places, from different walks of life, from different likes, dislikes, hobbies, sitting around together, opening the Word together, and singing songs and praying for one another and bearing one another's burdens, so that by our love, people will know that Jesus is real and
He's among us.
He's among us. So that's powerful.
Yeah. So then I started dating the Bible study teacher.
Yes, you did.
And, you know, for several years. And then we got married, and that's my husband, Keith. So, you know.
Yeah. And you were married young.
Yep. I was 18 and he was 19.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But we knew.
Yeah.
Well, so many people warned us, but it was the right thing for us. I don't encourage everyone else to do that. It was right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you guys are amazing together. So you and Keith met, you got married, which really was a vehicle of getting away from that harmful, horrible place. And so now you can start this process of really kind of regaining and rediscovering what life could be. Right?
Yeah. And I didn't know at the time how much would follow me after I got out of that house. So, and now that I'm writing my book, the memories are coming back. But I had a son when I was quite young. We had a son. And so I remember wanting to always give him a better life. But when he was like 2, I would just be so angry inside. And I could look at my life and say, there's nothing here to make you mad. So I knew it didn't have to do with my current life. And so I took that anger and I went to go see a therapist at that other church and began to put the pieces together that I had a lot of leftover anger and other feelings from childhood that was so difficult. And went through a long process of sorting that out and healing.
Yeah.
My healing has been tremendous. It's amazing. I can't believe it. And yet it took a long, slow time.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't make it. So.
Yeah. You're a little miracle sitting across from me.
I will say that. I am.
Yeah. Not a little miracle. That sounds like not trying to say.
No, but
you're a huge miracle. And your marriage is a miracle. And, you know, your son, like all of it. Like, you know, that's redemption, right? And that's also redemption of a legacy. You know, breaking that pattern, breaking that cycle, breaking that so it's not passed on, and allowing God into those broken, hard places so that He can bring beauty from ashes. But that's not a pretty road.
no.
It's a pretty excruciating road, but it's beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, in some of the deepest depths of my hardest part of my depression, I at times felt an intimacy with God that was just incredible. I felt His nearness. And in other moments I didn't, and it was very scary.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I kept going forward with God's help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big deal. What you thinking?
Well, I'm just reflecting on that I almost didn't make it. Like, I was suicidal, and I did try to kill myself, and I nearly succeeded.
Yeah.
And actually, what's shocking is that I didn't do it more than once. But the fact that I survived is the Lord, that people saw me and called 911 and all that. And it was slow and gradual, the healing, and I wished it would have been fast and easy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to connect with other people. I didn't know how to trust people. And so in many, many ways, even though I had friends and people who cared for me, I was separate from them.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't let myself really feel it.
Wow.
And believe it.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because we're really made for relationships. Yeah. So when that violation happens and that mistrust gets established, then the things that we set up for protection end up also being the things that keep us from healing, right? And
yes,
so you
the survival skills.
The survival skills, like those kind of become strongholds that we then have to go in and deconstruct so that we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable and trust. But you have to...
And find connection. But there's risk in all of that, right? Oh, yeah.
It's a scary place.
And when it feels life or death, why would you risk?
Yeah.
So as a therapist, I learned that the very first stage that a baby learns is trust versus mistrust. And I learned mistrust.
Yeah.
And so it was always safer for me to mistrust. And until, I had a therapist who went deep with me, and I gradually learned to trust. And thank God I married a good husband who I could trust, but even then I didn't really know how to trust him. That has come over time. So, but yeah. And all the things that you do to protect yourself are the things you need to lay aside in order to really grab hold of real life.
Yeah.
And I still was learning one of those this week, how I was asked, how do others feel when you walk into a room? When they see you walk into a room, and I was like, oh, they don't see me. No one sees me when I walk in a room. And I realized I still believe I'm invisible.
Yeah.
That was one of my coping skills. And I thought about that. Well, no, I'm probably friendly, but that's only if I realize I need to be friendly. But the first thought was I'm invisible.
Yeah.
And it was my superpower, and many survivors have that feeling of being invisible, which was safety.
Yeah.
And now, like here being on your podcast, I'm being seen, or at least I'm being heard. But it's about being visible.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. So you went on this journey. God spared your life. You weren't successful in taking it because he wasn't finished with you here. And, you kept going down that road, and it was a long road. But in the process of that, you went to school, and a lot of people who have hard pasts and go through stuff do end up kind of going down the road of psychology and mental health. And share that journey. What made you decide to become a therapist? And
it was a lot of things, but I did feel drawn to it, and I felt that I had the gift of encouragement.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to use that gift. I also had a burning passion to help someone with what I've been through.
Yeah.
And so that I'm really not a good go-to-school person, but with that belief that I could someday help someone who was in the very situation I had been in, if I had the right tools, I could help them. I thought, oh my gosh, that's worth it. And it was a long, slow educational process because I was a mom and a wife, and I was a hairdresser, got my way through school, 4.5 years to get my AA, another 4 years to finish my BA, and then I got to go full-time as I went to my master's program, which was the best at a Christian university. And learn to really combine my faith with what I had learned about psychology write papers on that and have to grapple with that.
Yeah.
Where's the truth? And I'm just realizing that the Bible is full of really good therapy.
Really
whatsoever
is.
things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever good report and worthy of praise, think on these things.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good therapy.
Yeah, Jesus is a very emotionally healthy leader.
Yes.
So much empathy, so much,